Okay, what's up, y'all? Let's talk about some stuff. We got another movie review to go over today. We're going to review Escape Room. I actually don't even know. I don't know what to call what I do, a review. High-level review, walkthrough. But we're going to go through it. Turn my B-roll generator on here so I can get some good film of me doing nothing, sitting on this bike as I'm leaving the chiropractor. And, yeah, speaking of back problems... This is how that movie started. Like, already showing some promise from the very beginning scene. I was kind of digging it, and then that scene pretty much goes on like that for a little while. The dude initiates the escape room sequence, basically set off a puzzle that he shouldn't have set off too early, and panic ensues. He begins to get crushed by this very well-furnished room. Starts to close in on him because he initiated a number puzzle before he even had the clue to initiate the puzzle with, and it just fades to black. You don't know what happens to him, so it gives you a very, holy crap, this is how this movie's going to be. It's a very Saw-type feeling to it. Don't kill me. Thank you. And it also gives you the sense of, hey, is this the beginning of the movie or is this the end of the movie? If you got any movie experience, especially with these types of flicks, you kind of get a sense that this is towards the end of the movie or somewhere the like. So, this guy is done. Fade to black. The main character, one of the main characters, there's 6 characters in total, is introduced. She is Zoe. Seems to be some type of very artistic, very introverted, mousy, but brilliant, I believe, physics student of some sort. Could be astrophysics. Don't quote me on that. Watch the movie. She's introduced. They give you various aspects of her personality. Fade to the next guy, Jason. Super douchey. Like, he's introduced. You already know he's the cocky dude in the movie. They always got to have one. And, yeah, that's his role. He's a salesman, probably stockbroker of some sort. Very high money, very high maintenance, pretty boy type dude. Then you get Ben, which you find out is the guy in the scene that I was just describing, Mr. Fall Through the Ceiling dude. Seems to be maybe they kind of portray him to be like an autistic savant type dude because he doesn't give off the air of intelligence, but you just think there's something about him that makes him stand out, right? So all these people are introduced now, and they receive, they receive a puzzle box. You know, very, reminiscent of Hellraiser. The crazy puzzle box is all square, and you gotta solve it. There's no way to get into it. So Zoe, of course, she's the smart one. She's braining through it. She's using her physics and drawing pictures. Zoe had a roommate. She's reintroduced again after you see Ben's character introduced. She goes back to her room. She meets her roommate. Her roommate's talking about going to a party. She doesn't want to go enjoy the party. She wants to stay in her room. But then all of a sudden, Zoe ends up staring at a mirror and having a flashback of what you assume to be a stewardess's voice because it sounds very airplane-like. You know, if you've ever been on an airplane, it's very customary sounds. And then all of a sudden, she wakes up. So she basically fell asleep. She had a nightmare. She's woken up by her roommate entering the room and bringing her a package which contains this puzzle box which I described before. So, now, we're back up to speed. Everyone has received a puzzle box from their respective counterparts. Zoe got the puzzle box from her instructor in school. Jason got the puzzle box from one of his instructors. Ben, I forget who sent Ben the puzzle box. Yeah, so you just had to mull over that one. So Ben gets his puzzle box. Zoe's braining through it. Jason's using Google, looking up how to solve puzzle boxes. Freaking Ben is just pissed off. He's like looking at it. He's like, "Why did you send me this?" And I failed math. Like, who sends me a puzzle? Whoever did this is demented. So he's trying to get his way through it. He's not having a good time. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 back to back to back. Zoe opens hers. Jason opens his. Ben's opens. It doesn't really explain very much how his opened. He's like chucked his across the room. He was pissed. But then his began to open. You better not go. You better not. So It seems like they're all somewhat time released because they kind of sync the scenes over each other. They kind of all close their boxes to solve the riddle almost simultaneously in this world. And then a business card pops out showing them that, hey, you need to come to this escape room for a chance to win $10,000, be the last one to escape or survive the escape room, and then you can win 10 grand. Meet at this location, boom, 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 they go, right? So now you introduce a, 1, 2, 3, fourth character, Amanda. Amanda is a war veteran, which is, illustrated later in the movie. She shows up at the location, no backstory. Like I said, they illustrate it later. And fifth character, Michael. She walks into the room. Oh, sorry. Let's skip the really creepy important part. So she walks into the lobby of the building before Ben. She met Ben in the parking lot as Ben was smoking a cigarette and just being weird Ben. She walks in, security officer decides he wants to take her phone, and he just gives her a name tag, just boom, right across the boob. She's like, okay. Usually somebody buys me a drink first, but all right. He's like, I'm gonna need your cell phone. She goes, why? Because we want people twittering photos of the maze. Haha. Okay, understood. It's the same thing they do in any escape room. If you've ever been to an escape room, this is very standard procedure. None of these people know this. They've never been to an escape room before. So he took her phone. And then he says, thank you for your service. Implying that he knows something about her past, which is really creepy. Movies already started to get a little creepy. And then you're like, okay, whatever. As she's going into the elevator to proceed upstairs to the second floor, third floor, whatever floor she's on, maybe fifth, he told her, another dude shows up. Danny, young dude, has a cell phone. She's like, yo, what's up with the cell phone? He goes, I always sneak in too because the labbies are so boring. So this dude's like an escape room fanatic, right? So you got the one guy on the inside that's like the geek, the nerd. You got everybody almost. You got the hot chick, you got the nerdy chick, you got the douche dude, you got the nerd dude. And then once they enter the lobby, you meet Michael. Michael's like the lovable guy. He's actually one of the only actors that I know from this film. I know Amanda Knoll from her role in True Blood, who plays Amanda, but Tyler Labine is a very funny dude. He's actually probably one of the most memorable actors in this movie. He's actually the only one with any kind of emotional depth to him at all in this whole film. So they all meet each other. They go, they talk, haha, and go around the room, do their greetings. Now, Amanda starts to notice things about the newspaper clippings. She has an issue with fire. There's a newspaper clipping there with fire, and she gets a little, I don't know, upset about it. Danny is just trying to figure life out because he's like, I've done 97 of these rooms, or however many he's done. He's like the puzzle room master, and he's pretty much like, yo, I'm gonna get through this and I'm a champ. Michael has never done a puzzle room. He's the older guy, gruff, lovable character in the movie, comic relief, pretty cool all around dude. Of course, Zoe is being introverted. She says hi. Jason is basically like, hey, I'm the cool guy, whatever. Introductions are made. So they talk to the stewardess, or maitre d', or whatever you want to call her, the greeter, behind the window. She says, have a seat, somebody will be with you soon. Ben's like, all right, I'm done with this broad. I'm gonna go outside and wait till somebody comes. He pulls the door to open the door. Doorknob falls off. There is a oven dial on the door space where the doorknob used to mount. Crazy. So Danny's like, holy crap, y'all, this is the first room. So they start to figure out, hey, this is the first room. What's going on? They start looking for clues. Zoe, of course, spots a number. She assumes that's what you set the dial to because it's on the book, Fahrenheit 451. The doorknob is another dial. Oven temperature, Fahrenheit. Set it to 451. The room activates. The room starts to light up with heat lamps. Like it starts to get hot, warm. And then they're like, all right, well, this is kind of involved, but okay, this is a legit escape room, so let's get other clues. They start getting the clues. Amanda starts freaking out because she's got an issue with fire and heat. And pretty much everybody starts going their own way as far as clues go. Everybody gets pissed at Zoe because she turned the button and turned the room into a hot oven. But they're like, hey, pretty much this is how it's supposed to go, and you have to follow the rules. Mr. Cocky Guy is looking for clues. Of course, Danny's looking for clues. He's able to discern some of the stuff that's going on in the room. But Zoe again finds a key to the locked vestibule door, or the window to the where the hostess is. They open it and it's a freaking animatronic. So the animatronics sitting there going back and forth saying, please have a seat, somebody will be with you soon. And they're starting to freak out. Amanda's pretty much losing it. And then Jason is just being Jason because he's a cocky guy. He's like, yeah, whatever. I don't want you touching nothing. And Michael's like, look, she got a clue. You need to let her do what she got to do. So Zoe continues to help figure themselves out of this room. And she answers the phone. They say, hey, as long as you follow the rules, everything will be fine. Phone hangs up. Oh, I'm sorry. Jason answers the phone, I believe. You guys got to watch this movie. Tell me how good I do on some of these, trying to keep all this stuff together in my head. So Jason answers the phone. They listen to the message. And that once they hang up the phone, it activates another part of the room. So now you don't know if their actions are activating the room or if it's time-based. In a lot of escape rooms, things are time-based. If you don't solve a clue by a certain time, another part of the escape room will kick off. I only know this because I've actually been to escape rooms. They're kind of cool. I didn't die, so that's a good point. The room now starts to heat up from the pillars on all sides. More heat lamps turn on. And then eventually somebody touches a notch on the table and it causes a screen on the wall to open behind a panel on a painting, which leads to a duct, an air duct. So everybody's now moving the stuff off the table, getting their hands into place to open this air duct. That's a cool cat. Open this air duct so they can, escape the room. But now they have realized that all of the panels have to be touched at the same time. They all have to be depressed. During this time, before they figured this out, Zoe gave Amanda a drink of water. There's a limited amount of water in a water cooler located in the waiting room, the current active game room that they're in. And she's already drank some of what they could use to weigh this down. Now, they find this out as they're trying to figure out this puzzle because they're all coaster placeholders for a coaster. So, you're dealing with all this. Jason volunteers to go through the duct. Everybody's like, how is it your turn? He's like, you want to send anybody else? And everybody's like, oh, you know what? Screw it. They send Jason. He goes through. He requires a tool that was found by Michael earlier, basically a star bit or a small screwdriver. And he sends... They send Michael in there to pass it to him. So Michael crawls through the ducts, passes Jason's tool. Jason unlocks the duct door, allows himself to climb out to the next room. Amanda's the next to go in. And she starts freaking out because she's in the tunnel. She's got heat. She starts having flashbacks. And then that's how you figure out that she is a war veteran who has survived a bombing attack IED explosion. She gets out. They encourage Zoe to go into the tunnel to help her get through. Zoe's taken out. So now you got the two dudes. You got Danny and Ben holding this these placeholders down with their hands and feet. So they basically let them go, right? Why is my phone ringing right now? I'm trying to do a movie review. So they let them go. The panel falls. They go to fill up all the water jugs and try to, of course, depress all the spots where the coasters are. Which, this is the part that pisses me off. There's plenty of stuff in the room that weigh enough to push these coasters down. Like, you could just put them on top of the cups. Like, weigh the cups down. It doesn't say they have to be filled with water because your hands aren't filled with water and they'll push them down. But whatever. For movie purposes, they ran out of water because Amanda drank it. And Ben had a flask, of course, because he's like a drinker, in his pocket. So they filled up their water jugs right in the nick of time. Or their cups, sorry. And Danny is now frozen in fear as the fire's coming down. Ben asks him, he's like, yo, bring your ass. You got to get through here. You're going to die. So Danny finally gets up, runs. The room blows up. And then they all pop out of the top into the next room and the grate closes. Now, where the fire blew up from the old room, there is a fireplace, which is like, oh, kind of cool. The cinematography for this film is actually really, really good. It's just the actors that piss me off. Danny and Michael are the only two actors where I can kind of relate. I can pull their emotions out. Everybody else has got the emotional range of a snail. Like, they all do panic. They all breathe like super hard. Like, not everybody panics the exact same way. It's very annoying for most of the film, but cinematography, the flow between scenes is good, I think. So now they're in a cabin. Danny is looking around like, hey man, this is fine. Amanda's pissed. She takes Danny's extra phone, tries to make a call. Of course, she can't make a call because they've planned for all this. And he's like, look, I'm just trying to have fun, and you guys suck. They're like, this is real. He's like, this is not real. None of us got hurt. There's nothing they can do to us. Can you imagine a lawsuit? So he's convincing them that the game is not real. So he seems like a very obvious plant by the company or whoever's doing this, but the jury's still out on that. So they're in a cabin trying to figure this out. and they're looking for clues. Jason's just like, screw this, I'm gonna start looking. He doesn't even talk to anybody. He starts looking for clues, finds a key to the front door. The door has 2 locks on it. He finds a key, unlocks it with 1 key. In the meantime, Michael's trying to help out. Zoe's trying to help out. And then Danny is also trying to help out. Ben, however, starts to stare at a wall. He can see a bunch of deer heads, which is freaking crazy. Like, you know, it's a cabin. You assume there is a hunt. Somebody hung up some deer heads. Okay. But he starts to have his flashback. Sorry, had to pay attention real quick. He starts to have his flashback about what happened in his life. So he was a drunk driver who got all of his friends killed. Only survivor. Amanda, only survivor of her issue. I forget exactly which scene they flash back to it, but Zoe, only survivor of a plane crash. So this is a whole room, it seems, of only survivors. So now, Danny's having Ben is having his flashback about what happened, and then he figures out that the next combination lock that they need is a word combination lock, the popos, and he figures out that it's Rudolph. They pulled over a bus, or there's issues on the bus. Issue on the bus. So they he figures out that it's Rudolph based on the song that he was singing the night that his friends died. They put in Rudolph. The door, of course, opens. They walk outside. Door latches immediately. Now, outside of the cabin, they're immediately in like a freezing room, and Danny walks straight across frozen ice into a wall that's very well, I don't know, generated. It's computer generated. It's like a snow-covered background, but it's a wall. They're in a building, so it's not like they're outside. And Michael's like, look, am I dumb or am I tripping balls? Because I think we're outside right now. So they have this room set up to be a cold room. They open a chest. There's a red jacket inside of it, red coat. Now it's time for Jason's flashback. Jason's staring at the red coat, and he's having a flashback of an issue he had with the red coat. He explains later to Ben that it was him and his friend. They were the only survivors of a boat wreck, and him and his friend had to fight over the coat. His friend took the coat, swam off into the ocean, and left him there to die, kind of. So he's flipping out over this red coat, but he's having all this struggle internally, right? He's not telling anybody this till later. They share the coat because Amanda's like, look, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to play us against each other. We're going to share the coat. They give the coat to Zoe. Zoe goes off looking for clues. Michael goes off looking for clues. Michael finds a fishing lure rod set. Don't kill me. Cool. And he brings it back all happy, and while this is happening, before this happened, Ben's walking around. You know, he's the underdog. He's the black sheep of the group. Steps in a fishing hole. Now, that fishing hole was not there. That hole was blown into the ice by some form of technology. He steps into it. He gets all dramatic. I can't feel my leg. My leg froze. I'm late. So Jason's making fun of him, of course, because Jason's a douche. And they all kind of gather around this fishing hole. Zoe's still out finding other clues. Michael puts the fishing line into the water, starts to drop it, release it, because he's like, hey, this is one thing I know how to do is fish. And Ben's like, oh, you know how to stand over a hole and hold a line all day? Basically says, if you talk to me like that again, I'm gonna slap you like your daddy should have. Some crap. It was pretty funny. You should watch the movie. It was enjoyable. Jason takes the fishing hook, the line from Michael. He's like, man, you ain't even releasing it fast enough. You got to pop the release. So he snatches it from him, basically causing this huge ruckus for no reason, and drops the line all the way to the bottom. And he goes, oh, damn, that's deep. And then he just looks stupid for a second, and then he hands the fishing rod to Ben, and then Danny, and then Danny hands it back to Michael. Now Zoe has shown up. She has a magnet of some sort. It's a hook line attachment. God, my face is hot. It's an attachment for the fishing line. So they pull the line back up, attach the magnet, drop it back down, and then they pull this huge block of ice with a key in it. Now, a little bit earlier, as they were looking around for clues, Jason found a door with a keyhole. There's a key and a block of ice. Ben has walked off to smoke a cigarette because Amanda said don't smoke that near me. Danny's just being Danny, walking around. And they say, hey, Ben, we need that lighter. Danny was the closest. He tosses Danny the lighter. Danny therefore falls through the ice that he walked over earlier because something just happened to go off under the ice. And now Danny is underwater in this frozen room, and there is a current. So Danny has now got swept away, and that's it. Danny got dead. So now they're like, oh crap, this is real. So now Jason's like, yo, Danny's lighter's gone. We need to get this ice melted. Everybody's like, what do you mean Danny's lighter's gone? Danny's dead. He's like, yeah, we gonna be dead too if we don't get this ice block with this key done. So they work on the ice block with the key. They don't have the lighter, so they got to do body heat. So they take turns surrounding it, alternating, and they get the key out. Danny has now become a victim of hypothermia, or so it seems. He is losing his mind. He's becoming disoriented, and he takes the key once they figure it out. Now this scene looks great, like visually is really, really good. He takes it. His dramatic acting about how disoriented he is ridiculous. And he gets the key into the door. He turns the key, and then a room on the other side, a door opening appears on the other side of the room than where they are. So they all run to it. They jump in, and now they're in the next room, which is freaking ridiculous. And all of a sudden his mind is back to normal. Like they still actually act through being cold. Ben does a pretty good job of doing it. But they're in a room where everything's upside down. The floor's the ceiling, the ceiling's the floor. They're in a bar. All of the accoutrement is there, the pool tables, the pool cues, but the 8-ball's missing, so that's a clue. And the doorknob on the door is missing, so they assume the two have something to do with each other. And they're like, okay, well, what's going on here? A phone rings in the middle of the room on the ceiling, which is the floor. Yes, so it's up there. And basically Michael's like, how the hell are we supposed to answer this phone? The phone detaches from the ceiling floor, falls right into his hand, and he answers it. And all of a sudden he's blasted in the ear by the old school dial tone that you would hear when you're dialing from a fax machine or you're doing dial-up cable. And it blasts his ear, and all of a sudden this old school music starts to play. Old school music starts to play, and then they're like, hey, this is how much time you got. Of course, panic room, things are time-based. So every time this music plays, something happens. So they have now decided that they're going to look for clues in a faster pace. They start looking for clues. The floor ceiling falls out from under them. Freaking crazy. Now they're in a giant elevator. Mind you, I didn't say this before. They felt the entire room move upwards or downwards, depending on how you look at the aspect ratio. And he's like, yo, did we just go up? They're like, yeah, this is Michael. The floor starts to fall off from under them. So now they're freaking out. Amanda's the only one who has the skills to climb higher, so she is like a free climber. She climbs up the room. Zoe sees a picture puzzle, like an old school, like move the squares, like move all of these to match and make it a picture. And she solves the puzzle as Amanda has climbed up and found a safe with a number pattern on it. And then Ben comes out of the woodwork. He's like, I see a pattern of colors. So now you're thinking, okay, maybe this dude is like some kind of autistic savant, and he's just not good with the other stuff. He's good with this. So he figures out this is the code. These are the stripes. It's the 8 balls. Zoe's like, yeah, this, and this. You know, they tell each other what the descriptions of the numbers are. Amanda puts the numbers into the safe. It's wrong. They figure, hey, the room's upside down, so maybe the numbers have to go in backwards. They put the numbers in, more floor. The phone rings again. Of course, more sections of the floor falling out. Just gotta run into my butt here. More sections of the floor falling out, and everybody's kind of freaking out about where they should be in regards to what section of the floor is gonna, come out from under them at any given time. So they're doing their due diligence. They're running around trying to stay off the floor ceiling while they figure out how to put the numbers in backwards, and then the safe opens. Amanda obtains the 8-ball door handle. She tosses it to her friends, and now she has to make her way across the room. There's only one floor panel left. She jumps down, tries to run across the floor. As it drops off from under her, the only thing dangling is the suspended phone handle from the phone that rang earlier. There is no way that little RJ11 Cat 3 cable would hold up a human. Not like that. So she holds on to this phone for, I don't know, a couple seconds, and she's like, hey, you guys go on, and they're like, Amanda, no. They do the emotional shock thing. Zoe is very annoying because her voice is really, really light and wispy. And she cannot cry in this scene, although her voice sounds like she's crying. That is the worst part of this movie, is her voice probably. I like the young lady, but the voice, oh, God. So Amanda dead. She done. She let go. They escape into the next room, which is freaking crazy because it is now that they've made their way into a medical facility. The setup of this next room is a medical facility, and it all happens to be exact mock-ups of their medical gurneys or beds or locations when they were all found. So when Amanda, when she was in the hospital from the flight, Jason, when he got back from the boat thing, Ben from when he was in the car accident, and this is where you find out that Michael was the sole survivor of a cave-in with his brother. He and his brother were miners, occupational hazard, caved in. He listened to his brother's last breath, caught up to speed. So now they all know that they are sole survivors. They figured it out. And Zoe is now going into, I'm slightly insane because I figured out that I'm a sole survivor, and she's like, you know, we're going to get out of this, and everybody else is like, we're not going to get out of this, they're watching us. And she goes back to a scene in the beginning of the movie where they asked her a question about, God, some type of physics, about not watching a system, like why watching a pot boil doesn't work. Basically, a system under observation will not change. So basically, she's flipping out, going, hey, they're watching us, so we can't change, or some crap. She starts breaking all the freaking cameras. And everybody's like, yo, will you stop flipping out? We got 5 minutes, or they're going to poison us. Jason figured out there's going to be poison gas pumped into the room. And there's an EKG-related clue. So they get the EKG. They found the x-rays. There's a bike behind me. Found the x-rays, plug them up to an x-ray viewing panel. They look at the x-rays. Ben knows sign language somehow. He read the letters that the hand was pointing out as the letters EKG. They look over to the EKG machine. Jason's smart idea was that the building or the next lock was heart rate based. So he attaches the EKG machine to Michael. Or I'm sorry, he attaches the EKG machine to Ben because Ben's like the lackey. He makes Ben do everything. So he's like, why my heart rate? Your heart rate's not high enough. I need a higher heart rate. He pulls off the EKG pads, attaches them to Michael, and Michael's heart rate is through the roof. And he's like, yo, basically I need a higher heart rate. These are the defibrillator pads that they use to save me when my heart rate was next to zero. Now he knows the clue for this room has something to do with his heart rate, and he knows that this particular setup has something to do with him. Now you figure out very soon that if it has something to do with your heart rate, maybe the heart rate should be low and not high, because this is your scenario, which is freaking crazy. So he zaps Mike with the freaking paddles. His heart rate goes through the roof, and then his EKG machine says fail. Now this is assuming that every normal person on the planet just knows how to use an EKG machine properly and where to place the pads. Okay. He zaps Mike again, sends him into freaking a cardiac arrest. His heart stops, beats so fast it stops. And then Ben tries the most ridiculous and asinine version of CPR I've ever seen in my life. He's basically like, me, live, damn it. So Jason figures out, oh no, maybe it should be a low heart rate. So he goes into like Karate Kid style meditation down on the floor and attaches the EKG machine to himself before he did it, and then he starts to meditate and slow his heart rate. In the meantime, he killed Mike. Mike done. Mike got dead. Like, that's it. They're down to 3, and the gas is being released. As most movies, the 5 minutes last like a half hour. No, this 5 minutes was 5 minutes. They're breathing in the gas as it's being released. Zoe's passing out. She's still awake, but as his heart rate comes down to the proper level, the door opens, and now they can crawl through another duct behind the panel machine that you can read the x-rays on. So Ben and Mike, I'm sorry, Mike got dead. Not Ben and Mike. Ben and Jason crawl through, and they're like, hey, you need to come with us. Zoe's like, no, I'm staying here. Okay, so Zoe's out. She stayed in the room with the poison, and then just make sure this dude ain't, woman, lady, ma'am, isn't gonna come over and give you dead. So they crawl through, and then Ben starts to have his emotional breakdown about the fact that we left Zoe, and Jason's like, look, she made her choice, bro. She wanted to stay. We should have made her come. He's like, what? Well, don't you get? We trying to live. She wanted to stay. Like, this is the one time I agree with Jason. It's like, look, I can't make you come stay alive. So now they're in a like black and white psychedelic looking room. It's crazy. And he's like, oh yeah, Ben's getting pissed at Jason because Jason is pretty much heartless, which you can kind of understand. Like, the dude's like, look, we dying. I ain't got time to grieve. I'm trying to live. But then Ben figures out that his roommate, or his friend, Jason's friend that we talked about earlier with the red coat, didn't swim off. Jason took the coat, killed the dude because he is just that ruthless. He wants to just survive, period. He gonna do whatever it takes. And they start to argue with each other, and then Jason picks Ben up by the throat and holds him up against the wall. Like, Jason is maybe 160 pounds, maybe 170. He's a muscular dude, but he's very tiny. He could not do what he did. Sorry. Not happening. But he's the tough guy, so everybody, you know, he's the guy who can do this random stuff. And Ben is now being forced to open a hatch on the floor that they found out was a clue, because Jason walked off and said, hey, I found a clue, get over here. He didn't say it like that, but that's how I'm saying he said it. And Ben's like, okay, if I open this hatch, what are we letting in? And then Jason just looks at him. He goes, fine, I'll open it. Because Jason is really scared of everything at heart. He doesn't want to do anything. He just makes everybody else do it. Then he takes the credit. So, he's looking at Ben, and Ben can't get it open. He's like, come on, man, try harder. And he's like, look, bruh, I don't go to the gym every day. And then Jason grabs the wheel, turns the hatch, opens it immediately. Which is like, duh, jackass, you should have just did it. Then he goes, what's this crap on my hand? They have been dosed with a topical psychedelic, you know, a hallucinogen that's on their hands. It's absorbed through the skin. And then Jason's like, you're melting. And they start tripping balls. And then the room activates and starts spinning. Sweet. And then they start having like flashy lights. Like, if you had epilepsy, this would be a bad scene for you. Ben realizes that he can see himself on TV, on a screen. So he goes to where the angle of what the video that he saw himself in is. That made sense. Yes. And then he goes to that side of the wall, starts slapping the wall, beating up against the windows, and it opens the panel. And there's a syringe there with the cure, the antidote. He goes to turn around and tell Jason, hey, I found the antidote. Jason straight mobs him, starts to beat the crap out of him, and then it's a fight ensues because Jason is only looking out for himself. So he does all this crap, gets the antidote, and then, you know, Ben's knocking it out of his hand. They're scuffling across the floor. He breaks Ben's leg or ankle, one of the two. And then Ben's like, you know what? I'm done with this crap. He goes and freaking football checks Jason into the wall. Now this wall is psychedelic. He can't see what's going on. All of the edges are kind of blended together. Jason hits his head on a freaking corner of the wall. Done. He got dead. Like, they're dropping like flies. Ben injects himself with the syringe, gets the cure, which of course works immediately because all cures do. And then he goes through the hatch, falls, boom. Now we're back at the beginning of the video where I illustrated to you how Ben entered the scene. So he's trying to solve this room, and I told you before, he is not having a good time. He is basically getting crushed to death. But during this scene, he figures out how to get out. Zoe, of course, during the meantime, is passed out on the floor. The room is now populated by two goons in yellow hazmat suits. They walk in and go, hey, what was she going to do with this? The oxygen mask. Ha ha ha. You got two bodies here. And basically she stands up and she says, live. And then she takes the stand for an IV bag and hits one guy in the back and then the other guy in the back of the head, on the side of the face, and then they're out. I'm going to tell you right now, not believable scene. They could have did a better job with this because Zoe is freaking tiny and those things are aluminum. You hit a guy in the back with that thing, yeah, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to knock him out. Anyway, so she's now alive. She has walked out of the door that they walked into. And Ben has survived the room where he was getting crushed. He actually did get injured, but he grabbed a shield and stuck his body in a fireplace and put the shield between himself and the fire, and he lived. And the door opened exactly where the fireplace was on the opposing wall that he was getting pushed into. So now he's boom, out free. He gets into some room with a bunch of cargo cases, wine, chalices, glasses, TV screens, and the game master appears. This is the person that they thought Danny was in the beginning of the movie. Danny was not, because Danny got dead. So the game master appears, explains to him how these rich people around the world are just setting up these games for people. It was 1 year it was athletes, 1 year it was whoever, and now actually 1 year it was savants, autistic savants, which was, I thought that from the beginning of the movie, but they actually brought it up. And then this time it's what the should be people who don't go on green. This time it's soul survivors. So this corporation or conglomeration of rich folks found all these soul survivors, set up this game, and basically that's it. So Ben won in the game master's eyes. The game master's like, hey, you won, here's the smoke. He's got trinkets, one of every other person's ID or wallet or watch or cigar, or he had he had Ben's lighter from where Danny got dead, which is nuts. So he's got all this stuff, and you're like, okay, cool, I can deal with this. He won. Nah, he didn't win. So the game master was like, yo, do they award the horse at the end of the Kentucky Derby or some kind of horse racing kind of reference? So he gets out a freaking wire and starts to choke the life out of Ben. And then all of a sudden there's a hack, some kind of system override, and the cameras turn on in that room. And then the game master's face comes up as one of the people in play in the game, along with Zoe's face, because Zoe's alive and she's in the room. She bopped those two dudes and took one of their guns. So the first thing she does, and the most realistic thing she does, is come in and shoot the game master. Like, she came in and shot that dude. He ran off. He's like, I'm out of here. The gun immediately jammed on the first round. She cleared that round beautifully and started firing again, like no hesitation. It was legit. Like, that was the one thing I thought, I was like, this is accurate, this is how you do it. And she's got experience with handheld weapons. So she did her thing, and she's telling Ben to get up. Ben's choked out, and then the game master, of course, she's looking down instead of looking around her surroundings. The game master, of course, grabs her because she weighs like 14 ounces. And he starts to give her the business, and then he's, trying to choke the life out of her. Ben, of course, is now awake, bops the game master upside the face with like a wine bottle, one of the bottles that was there in the scene, and he picks up the gun, and Zoe's like, make sure he's boom, 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 boom. Ben just unloads. He's like, he dead. I ain't got to make sure nothing. Ben wasn't playing around. Ben trying to live. So they escape. Ben is injured. They get to the hospital, and it has now been 24 hours, one day, since these events have unfolded. The investigators, police, detectives, whatever, because they are super in-depth, take her back to the location, and they're like, you mind coming back here with us? And she goes, of course, and she's like, hey, this is where all this stuff was. The room is the building with all this high-tech technology, moving rooms, falling elevator floors, blowing up shafts. All this stuff has been cleared out. It is now just a shitty warehouse. And you're like, okay, there's no evidence, none of this happening. And she's like, well, when Ben wakes up, he'll tell you. They're like, do you see stuff a lot? Basically saying she crazy. So it's like, okay, this is where the movie, I mean, it was already losing me some, but this is where it got me. Like, there is no evidence, none. Like, come on, y'all could do a much better job at this. No, you could just say the cops was on the payroll, something. They could have been, but they didn't allude to it all. Either way, did not like this part of the movie. They had another clue in that room that only she would, of course, decipher because she was part of the game. She read it on the wall. She's like, this is still part of the game. Whatever. Now it's been like a year or something, I think. I forget what the time frame is. She does like the crazy scream at the end of the movie where it's like, fades to black because nobody believes her. The cops are still standing there, and I'm like, what? The dramatic effect is not what you thought it was going to be right here. It sucks. So, of course, now a year goes by, and geez, what happened? They are now a couple, I believe. No, or they're just still besties because they survived this traumatic experience. He's like, I'm now the regional manager for whatever store he was working at the beginning of the movie, selling vegan dog food. I'm not making that up. It's in the movie. And she's like, okay, look at all this stuff. So she's got all these news articles of how each individual died, right? So Amanda died rock climbing. They had an article for her. Danny died swimming. He drowned. Article for him. Jason died freaking on his motorcycle. He was thrown from the motorcycle, hit his head. So basically, she's like, they would have had articles for us too if we died. So she's still on the trail investigating these folks. And Ben's like, look, you got to get us up. We survived. We good. She's like, I'm going to follow them. I found their location, and I need you to come with me. He says, okay, fine. Next scene is a plane crashing with some lady stewardess finding all the clues to unlock the door to the cabin, to pull up on the knobs and such. Damn it, what are they called? In the Air Force, I should know what these are called. The plane controls, the flight controls for the plane to pull up to get out of this terminal fall they're in. It's a simulation. She failed, and they're like, all right, do you want to run it again? They're like, nah. All of these main guys, these conglomerates that are controlling it, they ask what are the odds are surviving. They give her the odds, and they're okay, reset it. I'm glad Zoe got over her fear of flying, and it's like, boom, set up for a sequel. I'm like, come on, dude. This movie was not strong enough on its own to set up for a sequel. Visually, yes. Story-wise, So, I mean, I actually did like the movie except for those few little parts, but I don't know, man. I'm gonna give this a hard 6, like a hard 6, you know. But that's just me. You guys feel free to check it out. Oh, doggy. You feel free to check it out on your own. Go ahead and give it a view. Of course, as I always say, check these movies out, see how well I did. See if anything I said makes sense or if it was actually in the order that I said it. And go ahead, give me some comments, leave a thumbs up, thumbs down, interact. Catch you guys on the next video. I hope you like the new elements. They're fair use, so hopefully Big Sony don't come after my head, because you know they like to take care of everybody. Sony don't care. Or whoever else I'm reviewing. This is a critique fair use event, so that should be good. Should be. Catch you guys later.